What's up YouTube, and welcome to the Anabolic Outpost. In this edition I will be showing off my peanut butter chocolate squares. I've been making this dessert a lot recently because it is pretty straightforward to make, and it is a great spin-off to what a traditional brownie would normally be. This recipe actually uses blended chickpeas in there, which really gives it a very unique texture, and I think it's really great, for example, if you have ate way too much of my Anabolic ridiculous brownies and you want like a different sort of chocolate dessert, or you're sick of my Anabolic microwave brownie and you just want a different type of chocolate that really has a unique texture while still keeping that rich chocolate flavor. So let me just show you real quick what you will need to make this recipe. The first ingredient is chocolate protein powder, and I am using PE Science, and I highly recommend that you use a whey casein blend for this recipe. Next is the powdered peanut butter. I have PB Fit, but it doesn't really matter what brand you use, and this is obviously to give off that peanut butter flavor. It also does have quite a bit of protein in it, which is great as well. Here are the chickpeas that I was talking about earlier. Walden Farms chocolate syrup. Your sweetener of choice, I am using sucralose. Vanilla extract. Egg whites, salt, baking powder, and finally top it all off with some chocolate chips. Before we start mixing, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Alright, to start this out, we are going to mix the dry ingredients in first, and the first thing that is going in is going to be the powdered peanut butter, and I'm adding 60 grams. Next that's going in is the chocolate cupcake protein powder, and I'm adding in 66 grams. Next, I'm going to add in a little sprinkle of baking powder, and that little sprinkle is going to weigh 2 grams. I got some sucralose going in now, and I'm going to add 1 gram. Like always, if you're using a different sweetener, you're just going to have to do the conversion and see how much you should add, but just know that sucralose is 1-to-1 with sugar. And now that I have the dry ingredients in there, I'm just going to go ahead and hit it with a quick mix so that they're evenly mixed together. It is now time for the wet ingredients, and the first thing that is going in there are going to be the chickpeas, and I'm using an entire can of chickpeas, which is 425 grams. I also should have mentioned that you should rinse them before you add them, but what I'm showing on screen here is that it weighed out to 295 grams, even though that the can is supposed to be so much more, but the total can is supposed to be 375 grams, but that also includes the liquid, so once you drain it, it's going to be a different weight, so just know that, just add the can and whatever amount of chickpeas is in there, and it's going to be fine for the recipe. As I was talking there, I just added in 5 grams of the vanilla extract, and then I'm also adding in now 60 grams of the Walden Farms chocolate syrup. And for the final wet ingredient, it's going to be the egg whites, and I'm going to add 60 grams of that as well. And now that we got all the ingredients in the blender, it is time to blend it up, and also time for a sick heart style camera cut. And now I feel like I've blended it pretty thoroughly, and this is the texture that you're kind of looking for. It's not going to be completely smooth because of the chickpeas that are in there. It's going to be a slightly rough texture, but it should still be mixed pretty thoroughly. But just know that it shouldn't look entirely completely smooth. And obviously they're chocolate squares, so it's going to be cooked in a square 9x9 dish. You're going to hit it with a little cooking spray, and then you could pour in the chocolate square batter. Alright, and this is a pretty thick batter, so what you're going to do is go in with that rubber spatula and just spread it around, make sure that all the corners are evenly covered and that it's an even layer over the top. And you can see now that I spread it out so that it's a nice even layer on the top. And then you're going to go in with the sugar-free chocolate chips and just evenly sprinkle them around the top. I don't really have an exact gram measurement for this, but under the recipe I just write it down as 30 grams. But it really depends on what kind of mood I am and how many chocolate chips I really want in there, because they are pretty high in calories for it to be anabolic. But also, once you have them sprinkled in, you want to just press them down a little bit into the batter. I like them submerged a little bit, but not just fully riding on the top like that. But it's kind of just all personal preference depending on how you like it. And here is me throwing it into the oven right now. And I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes. And also, after the 15 minutes was up, I ended up adding it in for an extra 5 minutes. If you want to know if it's ready, you're going to take a toothpick and then stick it in the center of the chocolate squares. And if there's still batter over the toothpick, that's how you know that you need some extra time on the oven. But if it comes out smooth, then you know that the chocolate squares are done. And this is the final product. Personally, for me, it took a total of 19 minutes. And this is what it's going to look like once it comes out of the oven. And what you're going to want to do is let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes, and then you could slice into them. So because of the ingredients that are in there and kind of the nature of the recipe in its whole, you're going to want to have it cool for 4 hours before you slice into it. Similar to my pumpkin square recipe, it is just not that enjoyable right when it's fresh out of the oven like most baked goods, and it is best served once it's cold. So now that we got all the boring recipe stuff out of the way, it is time to get to the macro breakdown, the moment that you've all been waiting for. For this recipe, it's going to give you 60 grams of protein, 5 grams of carbs, and 3 grams of fat for a total of 60 calories if you cut it in the 4x4 fashion like I did there. So for 16 total squares, those are the macros per square. And just to give you a rough estimate, I'll typically eat about 4 to 6 squares per serving, so you could get some very good protein intake, especially for a dessert. And if you're looking to lower down that calorie or fat, you could just go without the chocolate chips. It's still a great recipe without them, but I just think it goes that much further when you put the chocolate chips on top. But that is all I have for you for this recipe tutorial. If you were confused or you had any questions about this at all regarding any substitutions or anything like that, be sure to comment them down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you found this tutorial helpful and delicious, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.